Hi, I'm Rebecca. Welcome to my sewing room. This is So Be It. Welcome if this is your first time here, and welcome back if you've been here before, and thank you for returning. Today, if you've seen any of my videos, you've probably seen this book. I am using this book to make another dress. However, this video is going to be a little bit different because I'm going to show you how to use this book to make your own bodice block that actually fits you. So hopefully you either can get a copy of this book or you can make a basic bodice block close to your size, and then we can go through some adjustments. So I am literally going to walk us through this book while I make my basic pattern block. So this will be my new 1-inch ease bodice block that I'll be making in this video. So I hope you're able to join me. The dress I'll be making with this pattern that I make from this bodice block, and which will be the final product at the end of this video. It'll be my Halloween dress that I am making. I already got the fabric for my Halloween dress quite a while ago. I think it was July actually that I got it. It might have been the beginning of August. I went to Joann's. The cotton was 50% off. So I really kind of couldn't pass up that deal, and I knew that I wanted to make some holiday dresses. So I decided to get two different fabrics for one for my Halloween dress and one for my Thanksgiving dress. And the fabric I have for my Halloween dress is this. This is a cotton. It is not a keepsake cotton. It's just a regular quilting cotton. But I really liked the colors. It's pretty much those exact same colors. So this will be the fabric that I will be using for the Halloween dress. I've made so many of these dresses. I'm able to do them, and they're pretty easy for me. So now I get to have fun with it and add some embellishments. So most likely, as long as I have enough fabric, I'm planning on making a circle skirt. And I really like a poofy circle skirt. So I decided I was going to get some tulle and add a petticoat to the dress. And I found some tulle today at the store. I still need to find, I think I'm going to hem the petticoat with ribbon, like a ribbon tape. But I'm not positive yet. So I have to decide if I'm going to do that. I thought maybe I would use a rickrack around it. So those are my two things that I'm not sure of, and I still have to decide how I'm going to do the waistband of this, but I don't need that yet. I still probably have a couple of days of actual work before I get to this. Now that you've seen all of everything that I have, well, not everything obviously, but the basics of what I have, let's go ahead and head on over to my table so we can start patterning the basic bodice and basic skirt and basic sleeve blacks. What this book does is help you to make these 5 dress pieces. This is a back bodice, a front bodice, a back skirt, a front skirt, and a sleeve. The book itself comes with a graded nest of patterns for each of these in different average measurements. You'll see it once I really open it up because it's hard to do right now. What you have to do is for this book, you have to take your measurements. At the very least, you have to have your bust, your waist, your hips, and they suggest your widest hip. So where is your hip at the widest? And if it differs from your natural hip, where is that at? And then you would pick the size that you need to trace from here, which you will see me do. And then there are also, by the way, many other measurements that you can use to get a very precise personal block for your dressmaking. I have not done that completely, but like I have my arm measurements as well, my wrist measurements. I have my shoulder. Across my shoulders, my front shoulders, and how long it is from my waist to my knee. I have not yet had anyone do my full height, which I do need. I haven't been able to get anybody to do my inseam or any of that kind of thing yet either, because you do need somebody to help you with that. But for these, we don't need all of that information. The only thing you really need are these 4 measurements. So based on this, with my measurements, I need to use a size 7 for my bust, a size 8 for my waist, and a size 8. Actually, could even go down to a size 7 for my hip. But I'll probably keep it at a size 8 because I like wider skirts anyways, even for like pencil skirts. I don't really like the constriction. So I'll do a size 7 basic bust. I'll trace a size 7 basic bust and then a size 8 skirt. I also will have to trace the corresponding sleeve size, which is a size 7. Because that is for the shoulder. If I need to adjust the sleeve to get the correct width around my arm, I'll have to do that after I get, or during the regular adjustments. So let's go ahead and open these up and get started tracing. Okay, before I cover this up with my tracing paper, you can see here for the front bodice, we do have a cut on the fold grain line marker. We have a bust line marker. We have a waist dart and a shoulder dart. If we wanted to, we can always move this dart, but we would have to do it once we trace this pattern and then adjust it that way. But I'm just going to keep the shoulder dart because I'm used to it anyways. So as you can see all these different sizes. This pattern piece itself is for the sizes 1 through 9. So I have to cut the size 7. It's kind of hard to tell, but all of these are different colors. So the one that I have to cut, there's a key somewhere. Oh, it's right here. Is the orange. I have to trace and cut out the orange line. And of course the center and the bottom for the most part is the same. So let's go ahead and start doing that. I like to put the paper right on the edge if it's going to be on the fold and I don't have to cut anything into it. That way I save more paper. Okay, now that I've got it all traced out, now we need to get all these markings on here. Also, don't forget the notches. It's mostly armhole notches, but we need to do those so that we can make sure our sleeves will line up. All right, now we have our back bodice. Oh, I'll also be labeling this as the front bodice and to cut two, just like it, or to cut one, just like this is labeled. I forgot that. Green line. Bust line. And our notches. I don't know if you've ever noticed. Sometimes, most of the time, your back bodice will have two notches in at least one of your sleeves. And that's to show that it's the back, because who knew, not I, that the front of your sleeve and the back of your sleeve is a slightly different shape. I had no clue. I thought that was interesting. That little cross that I'm making is the point of my dart, right where it should stop, but not be a crease. So also don't forget these 3 notches in the back. 3 notches, I'm told, are used usually only for a back seam. Okay, and now let's label this. And I'm going to label this front bodice. I'm going to set these aside to be cut later. Alright, here is the back skirt pattern. This one I will be drawing out a size 8 for my hip here. You know what I forgot to do for my waist? Because this is the waistline right here. Let's get that back out. You thought my skirt piece would be out already, didn't you? Psych. I actually forgot a very important part. As we talked about with my measurements, I need a size 7 for the bust, but a size 8 for the waist. And this is the bust line of my pattern. Where's the waist? It's right here. So, in order to make this work, I actually have to grade up from a 7 to an 8 in order to make this fit at the waist. So, let me show you how to do that. Line this right back up the way it was. Okay, I need to erase the side seam here. Draw this out to 8. And then redraw my side seam. We're going to do the same thing with the back bodice. Here we are. Here, same thing. Let's erase this line. Take our bottom out to an 8. Here we go. This here is my skirt piece. I'll be tracing a size 8. However, I'll be doing my dart at a size 7 because my bodice has a size 7 dart. If I do it at a size 8, it's going to slide it over. That's about a half of an inch right there. And then they won't match up and it won't be right. So we're going to keep our darts the same. And in our mock-up, which I will be showing you, we'll see where those darts land on my body to decide if I need to change my darts to the size 8 or if the size 7 works the best. So, okay, this is the same exact idea as the bodice. So is the sleeve. I'm going to go ahead, I just wanted to make that note that we're going to go with the size 7 dart, but I am tracing the purple size 8 line. As you can see, this is a pencil skirt piece, but you'll be able to modify this many times over to make many different skirt styles. So I will go ahead and trace the skirt back the skirt front and the sleeve off camera, and then I will be back to continue on. Okay, we now have should have all of our dress basic block pieces here. I did already cut mine out, and I did label all of them with no seam allowance to remind me that this does not have a seam allowance. I did this because I have been wanting some of my basic bodice blocks without a seam allowance. So, okay, once we have everything cut out, our book then says, once we have everything traced, our book then says it's time to make our adjustments. I did make one adjustment prior to cutting my piece out, and that was here, adding on to the hips and adding on to the waist. So as you can see, we added on here because we moved our seam allowances out. And we did the same thing to our skirt pieces. I didn't add on to my hips because I just went to the bigger size. So really all I did was add on to the waist to meet the bigger size hip or waist measurement. But it's the same idea as this page. But it is time to start making adjustments now that we have our full pattern piece. It wants us to start at the top of the body. So it says that we need to check I do know that I need to do this adjustment. And unfortunately, possibly for you guys, I don't need to do that many adjustments from this basic block pattern based on my size. So you won't get to see all that much. You only get to see a little bit. But it is what it is. And hopefully you can get this book and you can learn it too. Or learn it some other way. This is the best way I've found so far. Okay, so we don't want to touch any of the bust, the darts, or anything like that right now. But we do need to check our shoulder measurements. If we have a narrow shoulder, we might want to take off a 1/4 inch to 5/8 of an inch from the outside shoulder and then grade it down like that. I do know that I need to do that. So let me double check my shoulder measurement here. So your clothes, normally they say want to be, or your shoulder seam, they normally want you for like it's a set-in sleeve, to be right on that protruding bone on your shoulder. That's where your seam should sit. So you want to measure from the base of your neck to that bone, which for me is right here, 4 inches. So now in order to measure this, we need to fold our dart need to match up our marks for our darts, which you can't easily see. That's okay. Now that we have this folded here, we can go ahead and measure how wide our shoulder is. Yeah, I'm gonna have to take it down a bit. I'm at 4 1/4 inches, or 4 3/4 inches, sorry. Oops. You can see right there at the 3/4 line. So I'm actually going to take it in 3/4 of an inch. That's why it's a good thing, or a good idea, to know your measurements. So we want to find 3/4 of an inch and mark that here. And then if you have a ruler like this, use it to help guide you down and meet It literally meets it at the curve here. I'm going to trim that off because I'm not having seam allowances, but you should still not have yours cut out yet, so that you can add a seam allowance. And what we do to the front armhole, at least at the top seam, we have to do to the back. So I'm just going to take it out 3/4 of an inch. Oh, uh-oh. Make sure you don't cut off your notch. I cut off my notch. Let's fix that real quick. Oh, I see it. It's right there anyways. The next measurement it suggests is to, if you're tall, add length to the waist or the bust part, the waistline, but it's still on the bodice. So I'm not really sure where it is because my waistline is right there at the bottom. I am not tall, so I don't need to add any length. If you are petite, and they're saying petite is 5'3". Let's go here. Tall is if you are over 5'7". If you are petite, 5'3" or shorter, you should remove length. I am 5'4", so I don't have to do anything with the length. This is the altering the waist and the hips, which I already did for mine. So you could add on to the hips, which is just altering the outside hip line of the skirt pieces to add on to that, and your waist of the bodice should still be the same. There is other techniques in here, but that's the basic one. I did this, I added onto the waist, so I just graded out to the size 8 skirt, so I didn't actually need to adjust my skirt piece, I just needed to adjust my bodice piece. And then this is adding on to taking off the bodice, so up in like the bust area, removing space, and then adding space to the hips for a more, that'd be more like an hourglass figure. I don't have to do that either. And then it says to add your seam allowance. Of course, it suggests to add 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. So what you want to do for that, you'll actually see me do, when I do make my final, oh my goodness, when I do make my final pattern pieces for my dress, I will then add my seam allowance onto those pattern pieces by adding probably a 1/2 inch. I may add 5/8 of an inch now that I have one of these rulers with my 1/8 marked. But you'll see me do that. And then you need to cut out your pattern. So now I am at the point of cutting out the fabric for my mock-up, or for my toile, I think is how you pronounce the actual word for it. It shows you multiple ways to lay out your pattern pieces on your fabric. This is a double folded fabric depending on how big of a piece you have. Some of this is double folded with some left over for a single fold. If you do single layer fabric, you'll have to cut 2 back pieces and 2 back bodice pieces and 2 back skirt pieces. So now I need to go find the fabric that I'm going to use for my mock-up. Now I'll be done. I have my pattern pieces laid out. on my mock-up fabric here, I had to do, oops, my hands in the shirt. I had to do both the skirt pieces on this side. This one's not on the fold like it's not supposed to be, but my fabric is actually cut off, so I didn't have enough. So I didn't have enough fabric to do the skirt at the top of this skirt and line it up and save some fabric, but that's okay because I don't need it. This was already a mock-up fabric. I use this for like pockets and stuff. So okay, so the next step is to cut out these pattern pieces and make sure cut the notches on them when you cut them out, and then draw your lines, like your dart lines. Draw your bust line, your hip line. Ooh, I'm glad I read this. I need to make sure that I need to add a seam allowance. So I actually need to repin a couple of my pieces, but that's okay. Sorry, my dog's barking. Don't need to move any of my pieces. That'll be fine. Okay, so I need to add a seam allowance, but before you take the pins off, we need to, before you completely take the pins off, you need to mark your bust line, your dart lines, and your hip line on your mock-up. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out my fabric and make my markings, and then I'll be back. As you can see, I have all of my, all of my pattern pieces laid out here, both my bodice, front, back, skirt, front, back, and my sleeve. Fabric of my sleeves is a little bit different because I didn't have any of this poly cotton. Oh, I need to smooth that edge out. Didn't have any of this poly cotton that slides, but that stretches, but that's okay. But you also didn't see me trace the sleeve pattern because I am out of tracing paper, so I didn't trace a new sleeve pattern. This is a size 8, but I'm going to keep the size 8 sleeve on this because I like the circumference of it. It'll be a good size on my bicep. So the next step here, we're going to set the sleeves aside because we need to start putting the dress together, and the first thing we need to do is sew our darts. So I'm going to sew all of my darts on the bodice and the skirt. Sew those together, and then we'll move on from there. So you'll see me as I'm sewing the darts. I have all of my darts on the bodice and the skirt pinned, so now it is time to go ahead and sew up our darts. And of course, if you remember, we always start at the bottom, back stitch at the bottom, and then run off the edge at the point and tie our point off for every single dart. I have 10 darts to do, so I'll do a couple and then I'll finish off camera. Make long tails here so that we've got something to go ahead and grab onto. If I can get my thread separated here, I can tie it real quick. There we go. And then I just make 2 little knots at the tip or at the point of the dart. And there it is. There. You see it here, and then once I press it out, you'll see it better, but it will give it some shape. So I'll go ahead and do my 10 darts, and then I'll press them, and I'll be back to go ahead and tell you what to do next. So I must have not actually hit record, but I didn't lose too much. So once I got the darts done and pressed, all of them, on the bodice and the skirt, I pinned and stitched the shoulder seams because that was the next step. Now, let me move you back up. Now the next step is to pin and stitch the side seams here, and all you have to do is match your raw edges, pin those. I probably really should have, or sorry, match your raw edges and the corners, the tops and bottoms of your seams here, because I don't have any notches through this, but that's okay. Since this is just a mock-up, we're literally just making sure our darts are in the right place and the size is correct. This will not be a dress that you will be able to wear. In fact, if you want to, you can always take this apart again and reuse the fabric for something else. And with, you missed it on the other one, my seam allowances on parts of my bodice are not quite right because I needed more seam allowance in certain areas on other parts or other pattern pieces. But I do have enough to make it work on all of my pieces. So my seams, if you notice, are not completely lining up perfect, but that's because I had to take out a little bit of the seam allowance. So like here I have just enough seam allowance to catch the skirt, but that'll be okay because it's not an actual dress, it's just a mock-up to make sure it fits. Alright, you can go ahead and stitch those. Don't forget to back stitch at the beginning and at the end. Is next. Skirt side seams. Next, we will be pinning and sewing the side seams of the skirt pieces. So I will be back with that. Now I have my skirt side seams pinned. It is now time to stitch them. When I make my actual dress, my fabric will be pressed before I cut out the pattern pieces so my edges aren't all janky. So just know that. Oh, you know what? I think I was supposed to sew up the center back seam first, but that's okay. It's not too hard to sew up now after this. Next thing I'm going to do now is sew up the center, or pin and sew the center back seam. Let's see here. So I do have, ouch, I need to match up the 3 notches here in the back that we usually have on the back. So we'll pin these up right here. And then I think I'm going to sew up to the hip line for the zipper. Right here. So I'll put a pin there. And then we'll pin all the way down to the edge. Alright, I've got enough pins in there. I'm gonna start up here at the hip point and back stitch right there, and that should be probably the end of my zipper. I might have to go back a little bit more. I don't think I'm gonna have to take any of my stitches out. Okay, I'm going to go press my seams and I will be back. Now, I can't remember if the next step in the book actually is inserting the sleeves in the bodice or not, but I'm gonna do that next because I think it's easier to get the sleeve into the bodice without the skirt on it. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to do one, and then I'll do the other one off camera. I did mark my sleeves, the inside, with an X, because this fabric is really, really hard to tell right from wrong side. So I marked both of my sleeves on their wrong side. So first we want to pin and stitch our underarm seam of the sleeve together. There are no notches in this, so you just go end to end. Make sure, because it's most crucial, that you match up the underarm armhole of that seam first, and then you can pin down the raw edge from there. Because if the end is not completely straight, that's okay. It can get eaten up in the hem that you'll make of it. Now that I have that pinned, I'm going to go ahead and stitch it. Now that that's done, the next thing that needs to be done is a gathering stitch between my notches. So between this notch here and this notch here, the single notches, I need to do a gathering stitch, or 2 rows of gathering stitches, but I think since it's just the mock-up, I'm only going to do 1 row. Alright, and as gathering stitches go, I'm going to go ahead and tie one end off so that the stitches can't come out when we are gathering them. Let me go ahead and iron the seam real quick and I'll be right back. Now that I have the sleeve all pressed, sewn, and my gathering stitches in, I have the tension back to normal on my machine. I need to turn the sleeve right side out. And then we need to put it inside. Let's see what side does this one go on. Oh, you know what? Oh, I do. There's my top notch. Duh. Alright, so we want to put our top notch right at the seam, match the top notch and the edge of the shoulder seam right there, and pin that. I can really only pin one side right now until I get my gathers pulled up, but also this has a goofy seam allowance, so, but that's okay since it's just a mock-up. Alright, next I want to line up my underarm seams and pin those. And then I need to match the 2 notches where I started the gathering stitches. I need to match that here. And the same on the other side where I ended the gathering stitches. Match those notches. And then I do like to pin at least one more spot between those, just to make sure it doesn't slide too much. Now I need to gather up my sleeve. So that side is tied, so it's this side. I need to get my stitches. This one here is my bobbin thread, so I will use the bobbin thread and I will gather up some of these stitches. I am going to have to undo that. There's very, very little gathering that actually has to take place in this. But I have to undo that center notch just to get that little bit of gathering to the other side as well. The amount of gathering on, if it was normal, if I wouldn't have cut down the 3/4 inches, there would be more gathering. But I did cut down 3/4 inches to fit my shoulder. So that took some length out of the shoulder seam itself, so I don't need to gather the sleeve as much. Okay, and then we also want to match up the notches that are in the gathers now. Match your double notches to your double notches, your single notches to your single notches. Okay, and now we just want to make sure we even out all of our gathers here as we pin the rest of the sleeve to the bodice. Go. I've got all my pins in now. One other thing, many machines you can put the gathers down towards your presser feet or towards your feed dogs, and it works all the way through. My machine does not like that. I kind of have to do my sleeve inside out because the gathers have to be up towards my presser foot. So it's a little bit of a challenge, but it's okay. We can figure it out. So I like to start at my underarm seam when I start stitching my sleeve in. By the way, remember this is a slow process to make sure you don't get a bunch of folds and goofy gathers in your sleeve that you don't want. So go slow so you hopefully won't get too frustrated either. And that right there, look, you can even tell with the contrast, that is how you would do a set-in sleeve. I still am far from perfect. The majority of my gathers on this sleeve ended up in the back, so I know that I need to make sure that I use a lot more pins so my fabric doesn't move as much, but that's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other sleeve, and then I'm going to press those seams and I'll be back for the next step. Both of my sleeves are in. Let me look again. Is it this one? This one that I gathered, or that I sewed in off camera, I did not do gathering stitches. I used a bunch of pins and I kind of evenly spaced them around and gathered my sleeve that way. It seems to be, except for right here, I ended up, you can barely tell actually, I ended up picking up the bodice into my stitching and didn't realize it, so I just unpicked that. And I would normally resew that seam and it wouldn't look goofy, but for a mock-up, I'm not going to resew it. It's fine. This stupid fly. But I really like the way that this sleeve looks better than the other one because I think it looks smoother. So just so you know, you can also do it that way without the gathering stitches. So now that we have the bodice completely together, the skirt completely together, we now need to attach them, put them together. So where you need to match up your points, let me put you up top again. I'm going to have the skirt or the bodice inside the skirt. So right sides together. And then let's make sure we get them in the correct direction. This is the front of the skirt and the front of the bodice. Okay. Now we are good. Okay, so we need to pin and stitch the waistband of the dress now to attach the bodice and the skirt. So what you are going to want to do is match up first. Open all the way. Match up your side seams first. And then once you get your side seams matched up, you want to match up your darts. Not just your darts overall matched up, the seam of your dart needs to be matched up. Once you get that done, you can go ahead and add your pins to the rest of the waistband, just matching your raw edges. Now that it's all nice and pinned, we can go ahead and stitch those together. Alright, my bodice and skirt are attached together. So now I do actually have a dress. A mock-up dress, of course. A pencil skirt dress. But still, dress nonetheless. This does end up being just a basic round neck dress. This pattern makes it like way up your neck. So almost no matter what, this is just your flap and you're gonna have to cut a new neckline. This would be way too uncomfortable, even folded down just a little bit. I did forget to add, you are supposed to stay stitch the neckline, but I didn't do that because it's just the mock-up. We will be doing that with the actual pattern, or with the actual dress. So here we are. Next step, I have to press my waistband and then insert the zipper. However, it's about dinner time, so I think I'm going to take a break and I will be back to show you that, and then we will do the fitting from there. Hopefully I actually won't have too much fitting that I need to do, and then we can start with the actual dress that I'll be making. So I will be back. So I have my fitting mock-up all made. It is actually completed. The zipper's not all the way down, but that's okay because I haven't ordered another zipper. I actually don't have to do any adjustments since I did the waist adjustment when I made my pattern. If I wanted to, I could bring my darts down, the tips of my darts down about a ½ inch, but they're actually just fine the way they are placed already. So I'm not worried about it, and if I were to adjust them down, then I'd have to change the legs of them, and I'm not quite sure how to do that yet. So this will be the new bodice and skirt block that I have, and it's the same size 8 sleeve, and clearly I have enough space in this. I have about an extra maybe 1.5 inches in my bicep, and I can comfortably move my arm around, so I do actually really like that. The length is not bad because if I cut it at this length anyways, the hem will shorten it to where it needs to go. If I want a full length sleeve, it will actually be over my hands. So there's that. Now my next step is to take my pattern pieces that I have for this and retrace them and adjust the neckline on the bodice, and because of the skirt that I'm actually going to make, I have to almost because I think I'm going to do a circle skirt pattern for the skirt of this dress. So we will see. And let me get my clothes back on, and then we will go ahead and work on the pattern pieces for my Halloween dress. So it's a little bit hard to see through the paper, but we will be tracing our bodice pieces and just changing the neckline here. But I'm going to trace out all of the edges and the marks, and then we'll change that neckline. Let's see, I know it's actually not going to go up that high because that neckline goes right up to my throat. You know what, I think four inches down and about an inch in at the top. And then what I do at the top, I have to do to the back, or else they won't match. This is where these two match up here. So go an inch in there. Yeah, and an inch down at the top here for the back. Okay. So now actually erase this. We're gonna go rounded, a little bit of a round neck. So. That'll make a good neckline, I think. Now let's go ahead and do the back bodice. Okay. Now we can cut this out. I don't think right now I have enough paper to pattern my skirt, so I might just have to pattern that on my fabric, but we'll see. So I'm gonna cut this out. I'll be back. So we're at the point now where it is time to lay out the fabric and the patterns and get cutting. I'm going to line the bodice with this plain black poly cotton that I have. And this is the exact same kind of thing that I made the mock-up out of. So this even has a little bit more stretch. But the fitting of the mock-up didn't actually stretch anywhere, so it'll fit really good. But this will give it a little bit more stabilization and an extra layer for warmth. Since it is Halloween and holiday, I wanted to do something a little bit fun, so I wanted to make it poofy. So I will be making my own kind of petticoat. It'll be a little bit different than a regular petticoat because I'm not making it the same way, but you'll see as I get there. However, I have some regular black tulle, and then purple, like organza, taffeta or something. And my favorite is this iridescent tulle-ish mesh stuff. So I will be doing gathering and layers of these, I think, into this blanket binding to make one waistband and attaching that to the skirt and then attaching the skirt to the bodice, doing it that way. But we will see. I'm also going to try and add some pockets to this. I don't know how all that's going to work. So I'll actually make that decision as we get further down the road. So there's the fabric. Let's go ahead and get this laid out and pinned. I am going to have to pattern my skirt pieces with the fabric. So we will pin and cut out the bodice pieces for now, and then we'll pattern the skirt as we make it. I'm going to do a circle skirt, so I do have a pretty easy way to do that, just with folding my fabric and measuring, and we'll get it all figured out. Okay, I think I have finally figured out how to pattern my circle skirt. I have to draw it onto the fabric like I did with one of my, I think my 4th of July skirt. I literally drew the pattern onto the fabric. And I have to do that because I don't have enough pattern paper to make an actual circle skirt pattern. And also with the fabric that I have to do it a little bit differently. So you'll see as I go. I'm not going to explain it here, but you'll see as I go that it's just different. This is the fold right here of my fabric. I'm doing a waist up in that corner, and this will be my front panel because it'll be on the fold. And then over here in this corner, I have to do the exact same thing. I have to draw another skirt pattern, but it'll be 2 panels in this corner with the waistband in this corner. And I'll move the fabric around so you'll see it when I get there. Okay, so my waist radius is 1.57 inches or 5.57 inches, for the radius. So I need to do that, and then I'm making the skirt about 25 inches long, so we'll go from the waist measurement out, and you'll see what I mean once I get there. So right now I'm going to the edge of this fabric, and I'm just marking 5.5 inches for the waist. Fill in this line between my marks here. Alright, so there's the waist, and then I need to go out 25 inches from the waist. So we have the front of the skirt drawn out. Before I cut anything, I'm going to draw out the back panels to make sure that they really will fit. Perfect. There's about an inch between the two, and that is okay with me. Alright, now we can cut. Since I am lining my bodice, I am actually not doing a regular lining because my lining is a poly cotton. It's almost the exact same kind of fabric as my bodice itself, or the whole dress itself, other than the petticoat that I'm going to make. So I'm not lining it as you would an actual lining. There's a term for what I'm going to do, but I can't remember what it's called. I am literally going to make the two pieces of fabric basically one piece. So I'm going to show you. So this is the front of my bodice here. And then this is also the front of my bodice. I will be pinning them together and making them basically one piece of fabric by stitching along and regular stitches along all outside edges. And I'm going to do this with the front and the back of the bodice pieces, and so that kind of makes it become one piece. Also, that eliminates having to stay stitch the neckline, because the stitching that makes it one piece is the stay stitching for the neckline. So that is the next step, is to get these two pieces and the back pieces, of course, lined up and pinned, and then we will head over to the sewing machine and sew them together. This might not be perfect, even though, I mean, technically it should be, but I do know that my arm holes got a little bit off when I was cutting. So there's also, like, there's not specific spots that you want to match, other than making sure your notches all match up along the edges as you're pinning and sewing. So I'm going to go ahead and get this pinned, and then I will meet you on my sewing machine to get sewing. Okay, so I have one of my back bodice pieces here. I'm just going to show you what I'm going to go ahead and do. I will line up my raw edge with the edge of my presser foot so that it is all nice and literally all stayed within my seam allowance. You won't even see these stitches. I'm using a regular stitch, and I'm not even going to back stitch. I'm just going to go around the whole thing. So that's one of the bodice pieces, and now it literally just looks like one piece. It is one piece basically. So that's how we treat the rest of this. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other two bodice pieces, and I'll come back and we will actually start constructing the dress. I have all three bodice pieces all stitched together into now one piece respectively. So the first step to making this dress, as you saw when I did the mock-up, is to stitch the darts. You saw that earlier, so I'm going to just go ahead and pin and stitch the darts in the bodice. Because it's a circle skirt, I do not have any darts in the skirt, so I only have the 4 on the front and the 2 on the back. So I just have 6 darts to go ahead and stitch, so I will do that and I will be back to continue. Alright, I have all of the darts done on the bodice. This is just the front, but they're done on the back pieces as well. So as the directions for putting the dress together have always been, we do our shoulder seams and then our side seams, and then we insert sleeves. So I will be doing all of that, and you can see how to actually do that if you rewind. So I'm not going to put that on camera. I will just have the bodice ready to go when I come back, and then we will get into figuring out how to make this petticoat, because I am not quite sure how I'm doing that yet. And I've got, you know, the 3 layers, and so it'll be fun. So I'm going to go ahead and do the bodice, and then we will start working on that skirt. We are on to working on the skirt now. I think I've come up with a way to make this petticoat the way that I want it to work, I think. But we're going to find out, because I could not find any tutorials to like attach a petticoat to the inside of a dress, only as the skirt part of the dress, or a separate petticoat, and I don't want to do that. So so far I have all of my petticoat layers. I've cut them in half the long ways. So of the iridescent, I have now 6 yards. The purple organza, I have 6 yards, and the tulle, I have 4 yards, because I sewed those up the seam. I'm going to set those aside for right now, and I need to sew together the 3 panels of the skirt. I'm just going to do the side seams, and then I need to measure out the binding that I'm going to use to attach all of the layers of the petticoat together. I need to measure that out to the length of the skirt once the skirt is sewn together. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do now. I will be back when that's done. So the skirt is sewn together. All the panels are together, so I was able to get an accurate measurement of the waistline. So now I have this. It's actually a binding, like a blanket binding piece, but it is the size of the waist. And my idea, I actually don't think that's gonna fray. That'll be cool. My idea is to gather up all 3 layers of my petticoat individually, and then layer them in between the binding, pin those, sew them, and then sew that to the waistband of the skirt. So that's my plan. I'm going to go ahead and put those gathering stitches in the petticoat layers, and I may or may not put attaching them to this on camera, depending on how frustrated I get. So I'll be back. This is the first layer of my petticoat. I have it at the correct length for the waistband, so I will now be pinning it. You can't even see it. I have a pin here at this end and a pin at the other end, with about a 1/2 inch left over to fold over when I insert this into the skirt and insert my zipper. So it's all evenly gathered across. I will be pinning this in here, and then I'll be doing my next layer, because they will all be getting sewn at the same time. So I'll do that, and then I will be back. So I actually have 2 layers of my petticoat gathered and ready to go on the binding waistband that we're gonna call it. But as I was getting my second layer to be pinned with my first layer, I realized, hold on, let me get this back up on the table. I realized that it's just gonna be way too thick to do it all at once. So I have to stitch it layer by layer. So I'm gonna go ahead and stitch this first layer, and then I will pin and stitch the other layer, and then I still have to gather up that third layer and pin and stitch that. So that is my plan. Now, unfortunately, there will be multiple lines of stitching in it, but it'll be underneath, so you won't be able to see it, so I'm not too worried. So that's what I'm doing. The two layers of my petticoat are together and stitched inside the binding here. I decided to not do the layer of black tulle because this is poofy enough. I think it is because I gathered it and I didn't do a circle skirt petticoat that it poofs out at my belly. So hopefully it won't be like that when I wear it, or I will just add a regular petticoat underneath it to poof out the bottom as well, and so it won't look as big. So we'll see. The next step though is to attach the skirt to the petticoat, and I'm going to do it at the waist of the skirt. I'll be pinning and stitching the waist of the skirt to the waist of the petticoat. And yeah, so I would literally, I gave myself a ½ inch extra at the end here, so I'll be pinning it, well, the way that it goes. It needs to go this way. I will be pinning the skirt itself a ½ inch in to, you can see it, a ½ inch in to what I have of the binding. So, and then I will stitch that and I'll be back. So here is the skirt piece of the dress. Poofs out really big in the belly, but we'll figure it out. The petticoat is longer than the skirt itself, so that will have to be hemmed, but I'm going to figure out how I'm going to hem that. I might not completely shorten it, have a little bit of fun. We'll see. So the next step now, I need to take my bodice and attach the bodice to the skirt at the waist. So as I have done in many previous videos, I will line up the side seams, right sides together, obviously, line up the side seams and the back edges of the bodice and skirt, and then pin through there. There should not be any easing. It should all match up perfectly and be smooth. If I had darts in the skirt, I'd also match up my darts on the skirt and the bodice to make sure that those are right, and then pin the rest of the way. But that is what I'm going to go ahead and do. This is going to be a little bit different because I've got so much extra fabric with the petticoat, but we'll see. So I didn't do this previously, and I never said anything about having to do it. However, once you get your bodice pattern all settled and done, you are also going to need to make neck facings, unless of course you're adding a collar, then that's a whole different thing, and I'm not going to talk about that right now because I'm not doing that. But you need to add neck facings, so you also need to pattern them and cut them. So that's what I have right here. I didn't actually pattern them out. I just put my bodice pattern on top of my fabric, and I drew the facings on my fabric with my tailor's chalk, and then cut them out that way. You will also need inner facing on each of those pieces, and so that's what I have here. All of these are already interfaced as well. So the next step then is to match up the neck seams and the raw edges here, and pin that and stitch it Probably should have done this before, but it's fine. I didn't think about it before. I just wanted to figure out how to get that petticoat done because that was giving me trouble, and now that I know what I'm doing with the rest of it, I'm quite happy. Alright, so I need to stitch these seams real quick. I need to press these seams real quick, so I'll be right back with that. Now, before I attach this to my dress, I'm actually going to do a line of stitching on the outside here at probably about a 1/2 inch, maybe 5/8, just because that's where I've got a nice good line. So that I can easily press that up for the hem, and then we will attach it to the neckline. And I'll show you how to do that. It gives me a line I can follow with an already done measurement to press this or fold this over for where I will be hand stitching it onto my dress. So I will do that. So here's my facing all stitched. So the next step is now to match up the shoulder seams with the shoulder seams of the dress. Hopefully the ends should match up with the ends here, and I have somewhat of a point at the front, so hopefully we'll match that too. And then there shouldn't be any easing, but maybe we'll have to ease it in. We'll see. This. I can just stretch the base one. Oh, better. Yep. Well, I have to. Right, so I'm going to keep doing this, and then I'm going to stitch it, and then I'm going to understitch the seam allowance to my facing, and then press it under, because I will be hand stitching the facing to the inner layer. But this is going to take me a while to pin, so I'm not going to record all of that. I will be back, actually, after this I will do up the back seam of the dress, well, of the skirt, and of the 2 layers of petticoat. And then I will be back to show you what I'm going to do to hem the dress and one of the layers of the petticoat, and then I'm going to finish the other one. I had thought that the next step after adding the facing would be the hem, but I need to insert the zipper first. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I will be back to show you what I'm going to do with the hem. Alright, I have the zipper in. It is not an invisible zipper, it's just a polyester zipper. But I kind of did a little lapped zipper. I don't know if that will end up being fine or not, but that's okay. Doesn't look bad at all. So the last thing, other than hemming my sleeves, which I'll do at the very end, and hand stitching my facing to the lining, I have to hem the purple layer of the petticoat, or else it will unravel because it's already fraying like crazy. And I have to hem the skirt, wherever it is, the skirt of the dress here. But I'm not going to do a rolled hem. I decided I'm going to use a horsehair braid on both layers. I think I should have enough for both layers to do. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. What I have to do is, first off, find my back seam on my purple layer. And then we will hem it, or we will attach it at the end this way, and then we will fold it up once it's sewn on twice. Fold it over twice, and then sew the top. And I'll just start doing it. Here's the seam and the end of the horsehair. So we're gonna put it just like this. There's a little bit of the purple, as you can kind of see, and we're gonna stitch it like that all the way around. Now I have to take this, fold it back once, and then fold it back again and stitch at the top up here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that because that's going to take a bit, and the video will be really, really long if I do all of that on camera. So I'll be back when it's done.